Okay, Boker Tov Tanya, for the 30th of Sivan, we're going to finish chapter 9 right now. So yesterday, the last couple of days, we've been talking about trying to understand that we can't understand the unity of Hashem. And we were speaking about specifically the spheros, his bidos, his attributes, that and names that we give Hashem, right? That we call Hashem the Chacham, we call him Chasid. He's Baal Chesed, Rachabim, right? So how do we say all these things if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is just an absolute simple unity? And we explain that we say these things not because he isn't wisdom, he isn't these things, right? But that he's the source of these attributes, right? Which sounds very nice, except there's a flip side problem to that. There's a problem, but that on the other hand, we understand from Chassidus, from the Kabbalistic teachings, that when I speak of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's spheros, when I speak about how he emanates, right, we say that those are one with him. They're unified with him. So on one hand, we're saying that they're sort of like he's the source of these things that are kind of, he transcends these things, and they sort of are they're limitations in a sense, because again, if you're chesed, you're not gvura. If you're netzach, you're not hod. But on the other hand, we say that he's unified with these. He's unified with these attributes, and we said that really only. He said at the end here that really it's really the masters of Kabbalah that understand this. Okay, today is mostly a note, and it's a note. It's mostly Kabbalistic, and it's speaking about how sort of the journey, so to speak, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's infinite transcendence, like how that comes down into these spheros. How that we often, we do speak about this tzimtzum, this contraction that happens, right? But we also speak about the tzimtzum that happens from, let's say, the place of Atzilus, the place of the source of creation, right? And the tzimtzum to make it into this physical world. Here we're talking about a tzimtzum from his total infinite transcendency into his spheros, into the world of Atzilus. So he says here, Soda tzimtzum b'or ein sof baruch hu, right? This secret, the mystical secret of this tzimtzum, of this contraction, of the Ein Sof light, from the infinite, never-ending light, right? And that ultimately becomes this physical table, right? But how does it even? What's the movement to even become, chachma and bina and chesed and gevura, right? What's that? There's a major symptom that has to happen, right, to even be able for Hashem to collect himself in attributes. The tzimtzum adam kadmon. So there's this major tzimtzum of this divine light, and I guess the first tzimtzum that we're speaking about in this process is a major contraction that draws him into some level, where he contracts himself to some level called adam kadmon. Adam kadmon means primordial man, whatever that means. Right, the concept of primordial man, I'm sure there's many concepts. One of the ideas that's often spoken about in Chassidus, the primordial man, Adam Kadmon, is sort of that initial all-inclusive idea of a HaKadosh Baruch Hu for all of creation. Right, it precedes creation, right? But it's this some sort of all-encompassing idea with all of it's included within it. We'll leave it at that. V'sod hadikna, right, and then there's a level that it goes into called the sod hadikna, which means the secret of the beard, right? And one of the ideas of that also in Hasidus Kabbalah, they speak about the beard, they speak about hair, right, is because it shows a tremendous amount of contraction, right? Because as opposed to other limbs on our body, right, the beard or the hair, right, though it still emerges from you, it's part of you, right? Its sensitivity is so diminished, right? I don't think we have any other part, maybe a nail to some extent, right? But it's something that's part of me that I can cut with a knife or a scissors, right? And I don't feel the pain, right? So it represents, right, this again, it's still sourced. It's sourced in the same place as my heart, right? It's sourced in the same place of all my other limbs, right? But the vitality of me in my beard is so diminished, right? So it's a symbol of a contraction. You can see a diminishment, right? You could also see it sort of like, dividing into parts a little bit also, right? Like there's like so it represents this like major contraction of divine light, right? To ultimately, becoming almost just these strands of hair. They're connected to the light, obviously, right? But they're much more contracted. Shesod kol atzimtzum v'tzamim orshi slabish bechinos kelim diyud sviros, right? And this contracted light, right, ultimately encloses itself and it becomes these vessels, right? These kelim of the sviros. It becomes the vessel of chesed. It becomes the vessel of chachma and das. It becomes the actual vessels, right, of these attributes. V'hine achar shenislabish orin sof bechinas kelim dechachma bina das as shayach lomar mashikasav Rambam hu hayodea v'uamada v'uyadua v'dias atzmo. Right? And specifically when we're talking about like the HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, so to speak, intellect, right? We actually spoke about this after the class yesterday. Parenthetically, I didn't realize it was going to be coming in, right? We spoke about that we often use that the Rambam says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak, is the ultimate knower. He's got this self-knowledge that we can't comprehend. But he says here, it's after that, it's the contraction of this light vested in a vessel, and the vessel is filled with divine light of chachma or das, right? That's what we're talking. That's when the Rambam says that Kadosh Baruch Hu is the ultimate knower. He's talking about that level. He's talking about from this point, right? The whole point of what we've been saying leading up to here now is that to try to understand the essence of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, it's beyond wisdom. It's not even in the same playing field. It's beyond. So it's only down here at this level of contraction. Lafisha bechinos kelim da'atzilus nasim nishama v'chayos l'bri yatzir asil kol echa behem. It's ultimately these vessels, these attributes of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, again, which is the contracted life force, the contracted infinity of a Kadosh Baruch Hu that becomes these vessels. Those then become the life force for the worlds, for the world of Bria, for the world of Yetzirah, for the world of Asiyah. Right? This place of these vessels is the world of Atzilus. Right? The world of Atzilus is not exactly a world, but we call it a world. Right? That's a place of his emanation, and then flows from there the worlds of creation. Avablit simsum habasha nisker le'el lo shayach klal lomar hu yodea v'hu yamada v'chulhu. Right? But without this tzimtzum, it's not appropriate to call Hashem the knower, right? We don't, right? Ki'enu b'chinas v'geder das u'mada klal chas v'shalom. HaKadosh Baruch Hu in his essence isn't the knower. HaKadosh Baruch Hu isn't the knowledge, right? He is totally beyond the concept of knowledge, and it's ungraspable to us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is infinitely elevated and transcendent beyond not only our ability of wisdom, but bichlal, what wisdom is, even supernal wisdom that we're speaking about only up there, right? He's far beyond that. As we said earlier, that the concept of wisdom to a Kadosh Baruch Hu is like it's like a motor action, right? It's the way we perceive the lowest thing on our totem pole, which might just be thumping my foot, right? Wisdom is just that, But even more, he said, we have 5 levels of how we sort of go from wisdom to action. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is infinitely transcendent of even wisdom or action, obviously. V'hine ein lanu esek b'nistaros. Now we're out of the note, and now we're going back to what we said at the end of yesterday, that the masters of the hidden works of the Torah are able to understand how it is that these attributes are. We're saying they're things. We're giving definitions. We're saying they're chachma. We're saying they're chesed, right? And I can get it comes from him, right? But it's very hard to then say, but they are truly, absolutely unified with him, right? In a true unification, right? He says only the masters can understand this. And he says, Hine, so now he's back to that point. He says, V'hine ein lanu esek b'nestaros. He says, we're not concerned with these esoteric ideas. Ach haniglos lanu lahamin emuna shleima dihu garmo hichad. What's incumbent upon us, right, is the things that are I guess what's revealed to us, right? And that is to have emunah, to have complete emunah, right? That HaKadosh Baruch Hu and His attributes are one, right? That the Chesed of Hashem is unified with Him, right? That the Chachma of Hashem is one with Him, right? And we achieve that through emunah because we can't achieve that through our intellect. Dahainu midosav shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu Ritzono v'Chachmaso v'Inaso v'Dato im mehuso v'Atzmuso. We have to have complete emunah, right? That HaKadosh Baruch Hu's attributes and His will and His wisdom and his understanding and knowledge are totally unified with His essence being. Hashem is infinitely exalted above the level of wisdom and intellect and comprehension. Hence, since He totally transcends intellect and comprehension, His union with the attributes which He emanated from Himself is also beyond the realm of comprehension. It's impossible for us to fathom how He's unified in this way. This is why the attributes of our Kadosh Baruch Hu, Shehena Sfiros, which we call the Sfiros, they're called in the Zohar, B'Zohar Kadosh Raza de Mehemenusa. They're called the secret of faith. Shehi Amuna Shalamayla Min HaSeichel. This is the faith that transcends intellect, right? Faith begins where intellect can no longer reach, right? So our faith in this unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which we could speak about, but we don't really grasp it, because it's impossible to grasp it, is something that we can only touch, right, and incumbent upon us through our emunah. Okay, Be'ezus Hashem, we'll start chapter 10 tomorrow. Hayom Yom. Hayom Yom for, wrong page. Hayom Yom for Thursday, the 30th of Sivan, the first day of Rosh Chodesh Tamuz. This is the review of the weekly Torah reading twice in the original, in the holy tongue, and once in its Aramaic translation, should be done verse by verse. The Haftarah should be also read after this review. If there are two Haftarahs, such as on a Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, or when the Parshios are combined, or the like both should be read. Right? So we're to learn the Parsha every single week. Right? The halacha is that we say that we read it twice in its original tongue, in the Hebrew, and once in a translation. Right? Traditionally, people would read Aramaic, but it seems, I think even the Shulchan Aruch says that could be Rashi. I'm sure plenty would say that could be our English translations today. Right? Most importantly, that we read the Parsha over the course of the week. Right? But also, it's important to learn the Haftarah, he's saying here. And when you have a week where you like this Shabbos, where it's Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, where I'm going to read the special Haftarah for Rosh Chodesh, right? But I'm not going to read the Haftarah that was designated for Korach. It's still important to read both of them, to learn them, to know both of those Haftarahs on these weeks. An answer that the Alter Rebbe gave to a brilliant young man who was well known for his outstanding natural gifts during the latter's first Yechidus in 1795. So this brilliant man meets the Baal Tanya in 1795 for the first time in Liozna. He's told him spirituality and physicality are intrinsically opposites. A material virtue is a spiritual disadvantage. Materially, one who is satisfied with his lot is the loftiest of men, and his divine service will lead him to the highest rungs. Spiritually, by contrast, being satisfied with one's lot is the greatest failing. It causes one to decline and fall spiritually. Heaven forbid. Everybody should have an amazing day and a Chodesh Tov, and we should continue to share good news. And Zeo Yasher Koach.